right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So marriage, tyranny, and Haitian identity during the Age of Revolution. The main text I'm working with is Leonora Sansay's Secret History, or The Horrors of Saint Domingue.
Oh, it's just acting funny. Sorry. Naturally.
It's like making a beat.
One second. Ah.
Okay. All right, so just some brief historical context. This paper analyzes claims on freedom, marriage, and tyranny during the Age of Revolution, the Haitian Revolution. And Leonora Sansay published her epistolary novel about her alleged experiences as an American woman in Haiti during the beginning stages of the Haitian Revolution. American literary scholars contend with the notion that Secret History, or The Horrors of Saint Domingue, is a novel about Sansay's life. This paper does not engage with this issue within scholarship. Instead, I consider Sansay's position as an American author, specifically her stance on freedom within her historical moment. Throughout the novel, we mainly follow two women, Mary and Clara, who are fleeing the tyrannical forces of powerful men at a time where freedom is at stake for all in Haiti. Clara is bound to the home by her violent husband, which opens up the opportunity, among other examples in the text, to read Secret History as a captivity narrative. I will introduce perspectives of freedom relevant to this moment in history to display Sansay's connection and contention with traditional perceptions of freedom in America, and therefore an alternative solution for women who are ruled by their unforgiving tyrant. Although Sansay's claims partially extend to Haitian slaves during the Haitian Revolution, this paper focuses on the greatest obstacle to freedom in the New World for white women in Haiti during the Haitian Revolution. So from my findings, I was able to conclude that Sansay sees marriage to an unqualified husband as the greatest obstacle to freedom in the New World for white women. To make this point, she draws from the way John Cartwright discusses tyranny in his letter to Edmund Burke, where he explores the taxation of America by Great Britain in 1774. Together, both distinct perspectives on tyranny during the Age of Revolution speak to Sansay's understanding of a husband's perception and create a clear picture of the various ways women can be oppressed by an absolute ruler, whether it's a nation, an institution, or an empowered man. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about what this traditional American interpretation of freedom is. And I draw on John Locke. So John Locke displays freedom in his second treatise of government in 1689. I draw on this text as a foundational approach to the American understanding of freedom during its time because of its failures to disconnect the production of labor, autonomy, and social relations. When he declares that every man is a property in his own person, Locke converts both material property and self-ownership into the original condition of individual sovereignty. The highly upheld American tradition is to view others as free citizens based on what they own and therefore the labor that they produce to make their own material property. When we apply this perspective to the patriarchal family unit, it upholds itself as the male father figure owns his wife and children. The American family model, according to John Locke's claim, is viewed as illegitimate when it abides by the notions of ownership and property in favor of the male figure. The connection between labor and property fails to speak to self-sovereignty for the male figure when the social reproductive labor in the home is fulfilled by the wife, who is still viewed as property of the male. In other words, John Locke encourages us to view freedom as a reward for those who work hard for their material property. The wife within this American model of the family works hard, yet is still the property of her husband. Sansay develops this issue in the text to reveal that not only is the argument of property and labor weak, but the argument of ownership and freedom is as well, with the husband's qualities at fault rather than a highly upheld system of respect. So justice, reason, and humanity. Sansay argues that a woman will forever be enslaved by the ruler of her unforgiving tyrant of a husband when that husband is unqualified. She explores the qualifications of a suitable husband by addressing justice, reason, humanity, and confinement, which I view as captivity. Madame C is another woman in the text who is married to an unqualified husband that inhibits her freedom in the New World. When their daughter, Clarissa, becomes gravely ill, Madam C's husband leaves her for a woman of color, who he gives all his property to. Sansei writes, "How terrible is the fate of a woman thus dependent on a man who has lost all sense of justice, reason, and humanity." It's important to note here that Madam C was dependent on her husband because of his position within society, but also his property, an indication of status and therefore freedom. Without the position of wife and ownership of property, Madam C's legal freedom is challenged. Although Madam C is free from the rule of her husband, she is left with absolutely nothing on the island, where social status is needed to identify what side of the revolution you are on. John Cartwright, in his letter to Edmund Burke, where he challenges the taxation of American colonists by Britain, accuses Great Britain for also lacking justice, reason, and humanity. I draw on his argument to demonstrate the rejection of what may be considered traditional American perspectives on freedom within American literary studies. He writes, "You desire Great Britain to be content to bind America by laws of trade because she's always done it. But with you leave, sir, there are the arguments of Egyptian talkmasters, of Carthaginian bloodsuckers, of Roman monsters and Spanish tyrants. Nothing is wanted to reconcile as to the most infernal way of governing, but that our tyrant has always done it, that he used to act the tyrant from the beginning." Cartwright is comparing the legislative practices and arguments made by Burke in the House of Commons to the practices and arguments made by the other, who was made culturally available. By making this argument, Cartwright uses racism and nationalism as a tool for persuading Burke in the House of Commons to revisit the logic behind taxing America and essentially notions of property and ownership during the colonial reign. Sansei describes a woman that is connected by fate with an inferior being as only leading to a feeling of confinement when she says, "But if a woman is disappointed in the first object of her affections, fate connects her with an inferior being. You might as well expect to confine a sprightly boy." The comparison to the marriage of an unqualified husband to the action of confining a sprightly boy emphasizes the tyranny of such marriages. The woman in this comparison is full of life and energy, and her husband is restricting her liveliness. Sansei claims that the marriage to an unqualified husband will limit not only the lively nature of a woman, but also her development. Those who are under the absolute power of tyranny are confined to the limitations that the ruler determines. In the case of Clara, her limitations are the inability to express her elegant mind, stored with literary acquirements that is lost to her husband as well as her proud soul. Mary's sister, Clara, is married to a French officer named St. Louis in Saint-Domingue, who imprisons her in her house because he believes she is flirting with other officers on the island. The delimitation conferred on Clara's qualities could indirectly pose a justification for her to be a coquette. However, Sansei explains the following. When a feeling heart seeks for corresponding emotions, a woman like Clara, whilst unhappy, is surrounded by seductive objects. She will become entangled and be borne by the rapidity of her own sensations. Clara is not receiving the supplementary talent and attraction that she needs from a man that is supposed to be qualified to be her husband. Therefore, she is confined not only to express these talents in her own marriage. Sansei's comparison of the marriage to unqualified husbands and confinement pairs well with John Cartwright's comparison to the marriage of Great Britain and America through taxation. Cartwright elaborately describes a complementary relationship that leads to an ideal marriage in his closing letter. He develops this relationship in the text to demonstrate what an effective marriage looks like and how Britain and America can adhere to the roles of man and wife according to his example. And so he writes, "He shall view with his own eyes the lovely virgin and collecting their mutual tenderness from early infancy and the inseparable nature of their interests, acknowledging her native charms and her intrinsic worth, his fierceness in a moment shall melt into fondness, when leaving her to just liberty and rightful independency, he shall court her to his embrace, with a manly and generous frankness, with sincere love, honor, and respect, while she, wiping away the last falling tear, shall with angelic loveliness and heartfelt rapture fly into his protecting arms. When instantly the sacred hymeneal rites and plighted vows shall seal between them an indissoluble union, an union agreeable to nature, to justice, and to freedom, and surely the fittest that can be imagined for promoting their mutual interests." He essentially writes that it is the responsibility of the man to take initiative, with the touch as well as honesty of a woman's job to accept these qualities as favorable and direct her attention to him. The man and woman must form a mutual ground to uplift their relationship so that it serves both of their interests rather than just one. Sanse agrees with this dynamic by supporting the idea of a man possessing qualities that are either equal to the woman he intends to marry or superior. When a man's qualities are equal to a woman's qualities, he is in the position to mutually nurture the qualities of his life. When a man's qualities are superior, he's able to uplift his wife in a way that mutually benefits both parties in the marriage. According to Sanse and Cartwright, a woman can be inferior to her husband in qualities that define wifehood, but a man cannot. He must be equal or superior. And so finally, both writers encourage us to think about circumnavigation and courtship. And so Sanse and Cartwright both bring up this idea of circumnavigation as a solution to obtaining freedom from their respective tyrants in the New World. Sanse's novel as a whole traces the circumnavigation of women who travel within the Caribbean, America, and Europe. Mary and Clara are kept in continual motion as the novel concludes with their anticipation to return to Philadelphia. Their bodies are kept in constant motion. This consistent element in the text speaks to a proposed solution presented by both Sanse and Cartwright. In other words, a woman can experience the freedom that a marriage to a qualified husband can offer when she is given the chance to circulate or explore suitors who are most fitting for her needs. Without exploration, a woman is doomed to the fate experienced by Madame C and Clara, among many of the other women in the text, who end up single because of their failed marriages. Cartwright, as previously argued, is in favor of a proper courtship, which involves the exploration or circulation of interests, worth, and mutual independence in America. Both perspectives go against viewing freedom as directly associated with property, as this widely upheld American tradition of viewing freedom is flawed. Self-sovereignty can be achieved when both parties are mutually agreed upon and served equally. The marriages to the unqualified husbands in Leonora Sanse's Secret History functions as the greatest obstacle to freedom for Madame C and Clara in the New World, due to the dependence on her husband for Madame C and the confinement by St. Louis for Clara. The marriage between America and Great Britain in 1774, according to John Cartwright's letter to Edmund Burke, need to be aligned in a way that functions in the interest of both parties rather than hinder the progress of the young nation. Both writers use domestic relations as a means to address larger political conflicts that affect the development of those historically viewed as inferior. It is crucial to explore the ways in which writers can contend widely upheld notions of freedom and address political issues through the lenses of domestic relationships, as these two elements are intertwined throughout history. I questioned how the tyranny of unequal marriage can impact the development of white women in the New World. I can only continue to push these questions in my research and open up the conversation to these intertwined elements for the natives of Saint-Domingue, who were on the verge of obtaining freedom through violence. The Haitian Revolution was not the last period of political conflict. My writing and research will navigate contemporary Haitian women's literature as it explores much later conflicts through the lens of domestic relationships.